Hello, welcome back to another exciting episode of this. Welcome. And this week I am going to be perusing around the subject of surviving as a sensitive person. And what do I mean by a sensitive person? It's a very interesting comment, and if you argue against me I might become upset. But in all seriousness, that's not very serious, but in all seriousness, there are a lot of people are diagnosed as highly sensitive. And I took a questionnaire. You can do these questions on the magic of the interweb, and you just simply do this. You see, you get a typewriter and you connect it to a screen, and then you connect that to the telephone line, which then gives you access to the rest of the world. And when you're in there, you go, what is a questionnaire for the highly sensitive person? That's what you type. That's the tapping. That's what the noise makes when you type. And then you answer these questions, and I had to answer 24 questions. And if you get, I think the theory was if you got 12 or more in the positive, then that means you're classed as a highly sensitive person. And I think I got 21 or 22 out of 24. So there are things that affect me, and the thing is that what it's done is help me to understand who I am a little better, and that I'm not something wrong. I'm not. I don't have a fuse that's gone a bit, skew-whiff. I'm not. What's the phrase when you're young? What was it they kept telling me? Oh yes. Grow a backbone, whatever that means. I mean, I've got a spine. What more do you want? Stop being a mummy's boy was another one. Well, I am a boy and I had a mummy. So, I mean, what does all this mean? All this verbal bandage, if that even is a word. A bandage is a word. You wrap it round your head, don't you? When you want people to shut up and leave you alone. So that's what I'm kind of... So anyway, I was described as, and passed the test, as a highly sensitive person. And one of the things was, I do find things sad. I do find things like the news, the constant barrage of negative news extremely upsetting, and some days it makes me want to cry. I also get affected by loud noises, in particular sirens. Now, I have a lot of respect for our medical staff and police and fire engines and all that sort of thing. I grew up watching Fireman Sam and Postman Pat, and I have a lot of respect for people like that. And Trumpton, don't forget Trumpton. But what I don't like is the constant stream of sirens. And what I've noticed is, because it affects me, it affects my nervous disposition, it puts me into a state of anxiety, and I find it very hard to focus on things. And I do find our dear service people that sometimes unnecessarily the sirens are going off. There's nothing around. You don't need to warn anybody of anything because there's nobody around. You could just drive, and you don't need to switch your siren on. I have noticed that. There was one in particular. I was just walking down the road. There were nowhere near any traffic lights, but as soon as it's almost as if they saw me. Siren on, quick! I jumped. Of course I would, because I'm a sensitive person. This thing is real, and we're in a world of aggression, and we are dominated and ruled by primarily aggressive people who think that sensitive people, who after all, let me just let you in on a little secret here, tend to be people like teachers and mentors and even psychologists, and if that does exist, and those sorts of those sorts of things, people to learn from, look up to, don't really need to have their ego massaged. Whereas aggressive people tend to be your likes of your leaders, the people, CEOs, who little diddums need to have their ego massaged a little bit. Oh, but you're so wonderful. Oh. But anyway, I can harp on about this and just talk about myself all I want. But I've often wondered, how can I help myself with this? No, because it's very good knowing that you have this, knowing with everything, knowing about it is the first step, because then suddenly you're acknowledging that it's not you being weird, it is just what makes you you. And but then the next step would be, well, how can I help myself in coping with this? Well, I asked a very, very good friend of mine, who would be happy to know, is doing a special report on this as we speak. So you will know her as the wellbeing blogger. I know her as Vanessa Diaz, and she is an expert in this field of highly sensitive people. And so Vanessa, can you hear me? Are you ready for your live report?
Hi, Zach. It's a pleasure to be with you today on your show. Thank you for having me to talk about highly sensitive people and what sort of changes they need to do into their lifestyles, what sort of habits they need to incorporate so that, they can thrive and feel good about themselves and about life in general. So, as highly sensitive people, we do have very sensitive nervous systems. So, there are a couple of good habits that we need to look after to make sure that we are on top of our game. One of them is to have enough sleep. So if you're highly sensitive, messing around with your time to sleep and your sleeping habits, like being a late owl, it's not a good idea because your body needs to rest, and everyone benefits from going to sleep, from going to bed early, and have like at least 8 hours of sleep. Of course, this number is just a number. It's like an average number, so you do have to find what is your minimum amount of sleep. So, and that goes with a lot of trials. But once you find your number, you want to go to bed earlier, so no later than midnight, so that your body can really benefit from the fact that it's dark outside, and your body respects the natural rhythms. So as sensitive people, we are very sensitive to every environmental little change, and the day and light is no exception. So sleep is paramount. Then another important change is to make sure that you're not overwhelmed with information and you're not spending too much time on social media or exposed to the news on TV. So, really being mindful of the quality and quantity of information that you receive, because as a highly sensitive person, you are more prone to have a stronger reaction, whether it's to positive or negative stimuli. And sadly, when we turn on the TV, on the news, they are usually quite negative, and that has a very strong impact on highly sensitive people. So you want to limit the amount of exposure you have to that sort of content. And then, last but not least, it is very important that you find yourself an amount of quiet time just to recharge and do, whatever you like to do. So, it is very important that in your daily life you have at least, 15 minutes where you can do something that you really enjoy, whether that's reading, whether that's take, a hot shower, that is listening to a piece of music that you really like. So you really want to make sure that you have this daily dose of quiet time so that you can recharge and you can satisfy your self-care needs. So, of course, these are just three suggestions that I have for highly sensitive people that they need to incorporate, or it's like a must, really, for you to function well on a daily basis. There are many other habits, I call them well-being habits, that we can incorporate and we can change. But I think like sleep, quiet time, and the information, the quality of information that we expose ourselves to, it's at least the basics to start with. So I turn back to you, Zach, and I would love to know what you think about these habits and whether you have them in place.
Most interesting, Vanessa. Thank you very much for taking part this week. I must write down some notes on that here before I forget the important points. I particularly like the idea of taking a break because and being just having a bit of quiet time, especially in light of what's recent events that have happened in my time, which I will explain in a moment or two. But thank you very much indeed, Vanessa, for being part of us. You can catch her at the wellbeing blogger. You can find her on Twitter. You can find her on Instagram, and just type in the wellbeing blogger. And she has a blog, you'll be surprised to know, called the Wellbeing Blog. There you go. And lots of lovely articles on there about helping yourself. And a lot of the stuff is about being artistic and just sort of letting your imagination flow freely, which is what we all do here. In this studio at the SHP project, where Truth, Love and Madness sings to the cloisters. Thank you. Now, you might well have been wondering during some of this episode why Indiana Jones was standing behind me. Well, this is Indiana Jones. Say hello, Indiana. Thank you. And he's a tribute for my episode this week to one of my dear fans of these videos, and somebody who supported me for an awful long time, pretty much all my life actually, apart from the last week, because it's very sad to say that my father died last week on the 10th of May. He was 79 years old, and he lived in South Africa, which is where he died. I live in the UK, and we had lots of lovely meetings over a glass of wine on Zoom, and he will be sorely missed by me and indeed by my family. He loved to play the guitar, and he also loved to paint. And this here, Indiana Jones, he made for me in 1984 when I was, I don't know, 11 or 12 years old, on the release of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And he created this using the facts and figures from a profile of the actor Harrison Ford in the magazine Look-In, and we discovered his height. So my father, this video is dedicated to you, and I can only say to any of you out there who have loved ones, if there's something you wish to say to them, if there's something you would need to do, don't hold grudges. Please just approach your life with love, because you never know when time is taken away. I'm wishing you well. Please follow me on Twitter. Please follow me here on my YouTube channel, or head to my podcast, which you can find, search in your podcast, searching some thingy bobs, Mark and Zach, The Outsiders podcast show. And we've got a special episode dedicated to my dad on there too. If you're following me on my blog, the episode will be just down here. But please look after yourselves and be kind to yourselves, and I will see you for the next adventure.